student support services. And we offer counseling and consultations to students on a wide range of topics. The more obvious ones that you might be aware of would be things like time management, study skills, memorization techniques, how to cope with test anxiety, etc. But sometimes we have to get into some of the challenges that one might be dealing with at home, and from peers, coping with things like relationship challenges, etc. So this is why we are here. We know that university students tend to be challenged, and they are challenged to exercise at the tertiary level because we are no longer in primary school, we are no longer in secondary school, and a certain level of maturity, a certain level of responsibility is required at this point. So they are expected um, to be responsible personally. They are expected to be accountable, and they have to learn to become interdependent adults. As I said earlier, no man is an island. Much of what is offered at the university, much of what they would meet in industry and in the wider world would include projects. So we have a number of programs offering project-based learning. Students have to learn to get along with each other, to learn to work together. And that is not such an easy thing, particularly for students who might be more inclined to be introverted, um, and to sort of work on their own, right? They have to be accountable. So if, for instance, you are expected to submit your portion of a group project, you are expected to do that. People should not be having to run you down. And I will say I'm talking a lot about this because as counselors, we are very often on the receiving end of complaints of our student clients who experience challenges with group work, where persons are willing to pull their weight and others are just here to get a mark. And I have encouraged students to, because a lot of them will say, well, miss, I just want a grade, I need a grade. I said, so why are you having somebody's name on a project if they haven't pulled their weight? That's lying, isn't it? They have to be accountable. And very often, we've encouraged faculty to keep track of what's taking place with these projects. And often people who end up not pulling their weight, when the question and answer period comes up with presentations, they are often shown up, right? Because you could tell from the way they cannot respond that they haven't done the work. So they are expected to learn to become more interdependent adults, to depend on themselves, but to also depend on others. At let me go back to this a bit. The human brain is not fully developed until the mid-20s or thereabouts, right? So it means that often now we find in the literature the observation that your 20s are sometimes a period of prolonged adolescence, right? Because until you get to the stage where that prefrontal cortex area is fully developed, it means your executive functioning, your decision making, your ability to problem solve, your ability to understand that actions have consequences is not fully there, right? So this is why we have to sort of it might help you understand why young people very often have the idea that bad things happen to other people, but not to them. It's one of the reasons why, for instance, those MTV productions where people do all sorts of different pranks and they have to kind of give you warnings about, please don't try this at home, because people still feel that, they are invincible. there's a level of fearlessness that comes with that. But as people age and they get older, they understand that things can happen. Bad things can happen. So it's important for them to learn to become more independent, be able to be reliable and responsible. But sometimes, particularly as I said, before you get to that mid to late stage, or certainly by the age of 30, you're considered to be fully adult, right? Or at least you ought to be. You will probably need to get some assistance. All right. So what is expected of the family? At this stage, it's guidance, it's mentoring, and it's advising. All right. So we are not with a big stick running anybody down. At least we ought not to be. Persons have to learn to manage not just their schoolwork, but their studies, their home chores. For instance, at San Fernando, we don't have any residences here or halls, etc., dorms. So most of our students are commuter students. They have to learn how to get up early. They have to ensure that they get their things in place from the night before. They have to be on the bus terminus or at the taxi stand in a timely manner and so on. So your role as the person supporting the student would be to offer guidance, to offer leadership, offer advice. It's more of an advisory role than a dogmatic, I do as I say sort of thing. All right. So the role of the family, as mentioned, is crucial. The role of the student, the student is expected to be actively engaged in the process of his or her education. And when we speak about this, we're speaking about a word we use called agency. Not like a firm or an entity or corporation, but agency as in being actively involved, an active agent in the process of your learning and your education. So they are expected to have the right learning mindset. And we mean, when we speak of the learning mindset, understanding that they belong here. Nobody gave them this. Nobody waved a magic wand. There was no fairy godmother or godfather who handed them this. They earned their place here. So they belong here. They can change their abilities through effort. They can succeed. And the work they are doing ought to have value and purpose for them. So people who have made the mistake of coming into this institution trying to fulfill somebody else's dream often experience problems, right? We have seen for years here where students, that's prior to the whole online process. Previously, when we had or paper-based registration and so on, you'd find that parents would be filling out the applications and so on. And the question is, well, whose choice is this? Whose choice is this? Because if you are here fulfilling somebody else's dream, if you are here living, like there are some parents, unfortunately, they didn't get to do certain things, so they want their children to do it. They say we talk about living vicariously, right? Through your children. So I wanted to do ballet, so I couldn't get to do ballet, so you must do ballet, right? And I want you to do this and I want you to do that. And at the end of the day, these students are essentially not preparing for a career or a vocation. They are preparing for a job, which is a means to an end. And they suffer through torture, going against the grain. They feel frustrated. And then on top of that, gate locks you in. The gate is a gate in that you are locked in to a particular choice. And if you haven't taken the time to actually do some research and figure out if this is really the area I ought to be in, right? Then you may run into some problems. So as I said, just to recap, the learning mindset, I belong in this community. I can learn, I can change my abilities through effort. I can succeed. And the work that I am doing must have value and purpose for me. All right? So this is what the role of the student ought to be. As it relates to the different transitions and the adjustments, your students would have had to adjust when they move from primary school into secondary school, having one primary teacher and then moving into 10, 12 subjects where we have different teachers. We have the transition from Form 3 into Form 4 when we get into the CSEC syllabus and so on. We have, for those who did CAPE, the adjustment from CSEC to CAPE. And those who would have come from secondary school to university, you have another set of transitions. So if you were used to people doing everything for you, you may have a problem in that you now have to make certain decisions. Our students are expected to compete with balancing those competing demands. You often hear this saying that these lecturers don't be talking to each other. They just get a deadline for tomorrow and then I get next one for Friday. Like, do these people talk with each other to see, how much thing I supposed to get done this week? Learning to balance competing demands, becoming knowledgeable, and not being so reliant on Dr. Google, but actually getting into the library and finding out about reputable sources of information, finding out about databases that are helpful. They need to be able to be an advocate for themselves. We often encounter students, they have had a death in the family, or they might be going through some other type of turbulent situation at home. It happens around exam time and nobody says anything. Nobody comes and says, well, and I'm like, okay, so this happened. You lost this person and you were in the middle of exams. Did you inform anybody? No, right? You are experiencing financial hardship. There are challenges with transport, etc. And you are constantly running late. You don't say anything to anybody. At some point, you will have to consider opening up to someone. Certainly, sometimes it ought to be like a program leader or an instructor that you feel you are comfortable approaching and so forth. So the student has to become his or her own advocate. Speaking up is important. Nobody in here, as far as I'm aware, we are not clairvoyant, we are not psychic, we cannot look at you and know what's happening. We have to, like how we see some people on the road, I wonder if I'm supposed to read your mind and feel the vibration that you are turning left or right, because apparently the indicator is there for style. Nobody is there to kind of, well, I sense that he or she is going to turn now. No, you have to speak up for yourself, right? You have to learn to cope with stress, managing stress. And a big part of managing stress is, just like the Serenity Prayer says, understanding what I can and cannot control. Understanding the difference between what I can and what I cannot control. It is important to learn to adjust, to be flexible, to learn how to wing it. Somebody might run late the morning of a presentation. Do we all stand there and freeze? Some adjustments might be needed. It's important to exercise that initiative, developing that personal initiative, taking charge of a situation and dealing with it. And it's important to monitor self, so that a lot of the time we don't take note of how we are doing. We don't take note of how we are feeling. We just run from one thing to the next. And you have to sometimes do a self-check to determine how well you're coping. Mental health is to quote M. Scott Peck from his best-selling book, The Road Less Traveled. He indicated in the book, I read it as a young person many years ago. It might have influenced my choice in terms of the path I took in life, helping others. He would have said mental health is an ongoing process of dedication to reality, whatever the cost. There are costs attached to facing reality. Many people, for instance, stay in unhealthy situations because they are concerned about the costs associated with splitting up, breaking up, the hardship that might be posed on them if they decided to take that step. There are costs attached. But to be mentally healthy, we cannot live in la la land. We cannot be living in denial. We have to face certain things. And if something is not working out, we have to take a look at it. We have to take a look at it. We have to find, well, why is it that I am feeling as uneasy as I feel? What is happening? Why is it that whenever I think about starting the week, it feels like if a storm cloud is coming in? What is it that is happening here? So being your own monitor, checking yourself, ensuring that you are, that expression, check yourself before you wreck yourself. You have to be on top of that. So there are a number of transitions that, because remember, in this space, it's not like in secondary school where a teacher might be seeing you more often and might have a more, a closer connection to you, might say, listen, I've noticed, you're looking a bit sad, very often because of the sheer size of classes and the demands being placed on our academics, it's not always easy to do that. And so, as I said, you have to keep check. You have to be on top of things. All right. So there are some transitions that ought to be you ought to take into consideration. Now this area here, if I could put it in neon and put on a bullhorn, turn up the volume, as it were, I would, because this constitutes a major area of concern in our setting. There are 4 pillars of healthy relationships: empathy, honesty, transparency, and reciprocity. Empathy, the ability to put oneself in another person's shoes, to feel what they feel, to sort of walk a mile in their shoes and understand what they're dealing with. Honesty, of course, it seems obvious, honesty, but sometimes people overtly lie. They might say, for instance, that the background colors here are purple and green. That's an out and out overt lie. But then you also have people who lie by omission. So they may tell you half truths and, they tell you a piece of the story and, you don't know where you stand. Transparency is openness. You work with some couples and trying to get into a partner's phone might be trying to break into Fort Knox. There's openness. The openness is not there. And then you have such things, being open. Transparency is about being open, not having secrets, not hiding. And then reciprocity has to do with an exchange, you have my back and I have yours. And you could actually use those 4 pillars as a guide to determine the health of your relationships, whether it is a relationship with a partner, with a spouse, with a family, with friends. And at this stage, we know that in university, some relationships will not survive university. I'll say that again. Some of your relationships will not survive university. We have seen instances, for instance, of spouses who actively sabotage their partner because they perceive that at the end of this program, they might be in a better position than them financially, economically, and otherwise. We have some friendships that will not persist because, of course, I'm not going to be able to lime and party and, like I would normally do. So in relationships, there will also be those transitions. There's stress and its impact on the relationship with the family. The student has to be functioning sometimes, particularly our part-time students, they have to function at the level of, they have to function on their job, they have to function at home, they have to function at school. And that lack of support sometimes really can take its toll. There is limited time to engage in leisure activities. So no, we will have to sit out some fetes, and um some people will not understand that. There will be new friendships and new relationships, and people forming those new relationships and friendships could impact their significant others. It could impact their partners. They may not be comfortable with the idea of you associating with, like for instance, at San Fernando and Point Lisas, where we have a number of the engineering disciplines that tend to be male dominated. There may be some concerns about your girlfriend engaging or wife engaging with these fellas, And then, of course, we have transitions in relationships, like many, and I can't tell you how this is, yeah. And it's Murphy's Law where this is concerned a lot of the time, meaning that anything that can go wrong will, and at the worst possible time, and inevitably, many of these relationships end just before exam. So there are transitions in relationships as well. And it's about navigating the battlefield, so to speak, in surviving all of this. Some personal challenges, for instance, that one might experience is mentioned here. We might have challenges with confidence. We may experience death or loss or divorce, separation, illness, heightened anxiety, depression, financial difficulties, and the list goes on. The list goes on. So people have to know who they are. All right. I mean, what you think and feel about yourself can affect how you behave. So Epictetus, the Greek philosopher, would have said, men are disturbed not by things in and of themselves, but by the view which they take of them. It's your perception that very often can have an impact on your reality. How do you feel about yourself? And if those beliefs you have deep down inside about you, about your worth, about your ability, about your talents, can have an impact on what you decide to do, the steps you take, the conversations you engage in, the fact that you might or might not take an advantage of opportunities that come your way, etc. So there are some personal issues that you can be impacted by, and all of this can take its toll. Then on top of that, you have mounting pressure due to your workload. And as I said, if one fails to be mature, be responsible, maybe hang out with people who will encourage you to do more of the right thing than the wrong thing, you could fall into the trap that many students fall into of procrastinating. The sun will come out tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow is the favorite word of many people. And as I said at university, Murphy's Law. You put it off for tomorrow, and then tomorrow more is added to your plate. So there's mounting pressure, increased workload, you're procrastinating, you keep putting it off, right? And by the end of term, this is your condition. There's panic, hysteria, mounting fear. And as I tell you, as counselors, we see a lot of the crises because in our setting in this region, even post-pandemic, when people may have thought, okay, depression and anxiety is not real, right? But certainly post-pandemic, we expect that people understand that. But in our region, people still have hang-ups about, seeking help at an earlier stage. We essentially wait until water is more than flour, skating in the mess, and then, oh, maybe I need some help. By that time, you are grasping at straws. By that time, it's a limited time frame in which you can catch up and function. At the end of the term, we can't wait until the end of the term to do what we need to do. You need to have a schedule. You need to be overlearning. You need to be looking at material several times. You need to understand what mnemonic devices are, MNEMONIC, memorization techniques and tools that can help you in the classroom and to help you retain information and so on. Otherwise, by the end of the term, exam is here, right? And your sympathetic system, parasympathetic system is all over the place, and you're not handling things well. Cramming is not going to help you in this environment. If you are used to doing that, you will need to get some help understanding how to overcome that. Respecting deadlines is important. Deadlines are not alive. They are not moving. Yeah. They are fixed. Good. So learning to respect deadlines and so on is important. The irritability as stress mounts and so on, these are the things that can occur. So in order to promote a successful transition, it is important to consider that we should have some positive relationships. Positive relationships. Trying to keep the friends who will encourage us rather than discourage us. Those healthier relationships, as I mentioned earlier, the 4 pillars: empathy, honesty, transparency, reciprocity. I have encountered a number of students who actually the family they have is not actually the family they live with. At least they don't consider family to be the people they live with because of how that particular family treats them. The one young man stands out to me. He told me, and he was quite successful academically, but emotionally, he had a lot of catching up to do. Because he said if his mother walked up to him right now, he would not know her. She left when he was 6 months old. His father was a drug addict. The person who became his mother was his neighbor. She took charge of this young man, this child, and did her part, that's the person he considered to be mother. When he came to meet with me at this level, what was happening at that time is that her biological children were getting antsy because they were concerned that he had his eyes on her property and so forth. So he had to kind of leave at that point and make his way in the world. But he said she was the person who became my mother. You have to ask yourself sometimes, you know, we wonder how do people make it in this world, in dysfunction. And I ask myself, well, how do the orphans make it? Because we have orphans who've grown up without that stability, consistency, etc., and they somehow make it. The mindset has a lot to do with it, but also very often they learn how to form, or people have been instrumental in helping them love themselves, people stepping in, the kindness of others, is an important factor, in their progress. So the mindset is important, yes, but relationships are key. Too often people are not communicating. There are many family members sometimes who are physically present, but not really present. So a good supportive network is crucial. And I tell people, well, if your mother doesn't talk, well, go by auntie. Auntie who is the person you normally reach out to, go to auntie, the ability to problem solve, the ability to, as I said, speak up and ask for support. Sometimes people don't have the words. They might just say, I need help. Or they may say, I am just tired. I'm tired. And you might, want to engage with them. They have to learn how to delegate. Again, no man is an island. You have to learn to delegate, hand out some of the tasks. You don't have to do everything. All right. So asking for a bit of assistance along the way is necessary, maintaining balance. And something I learned to do, and I mean, a long time ago, I realized how important it is that sense of humor, the ability to laugh at yourself sometimes is important. I mean, one guarantee in life is that people will laugh at you, right? We have to learn to laugh at ourselves sometimes. Really? I did that? Yeah, I did that. Um, and very, very crucial, very, very important. What sometimes really makes the difference is we know for a fact that the people who cope with the challenges in life very often are people who have a solid spiritual background, footing, and relationship. They know who they are and they know whose they are. And that very often is crucial in making the difference. We know, for instance, that agnostics and atheists did not fare well during the pandemic because they kept trusting the science and the goalposts kept moving. And then it was, well, what do we hold on to? Nothing. All right. So spiritual wellness is key. And so these are some of the factors, issues that we need to keep in mind as we support students in this environment. So the need for balance cannot be overemphasized. I am, of course, biased when I say this, but there is no health without mental health. And so you have to work towards being well balanced and well rounded, all these different facets, contribute to a balanced life, a balanced approach. And so the family system, the family is key in supporting students in our environment, and their importance in offering that support cannot be overemphasized. When we look at some of the reasons students underachieve, very often it's related to the level of confidence they have, how motivated they are, and of course, how motivated they are if you're here fulfilling somebody else's dream. Yeah, you have a problem, right? It depends on their support system, and it also depends. Student achievement is also related to the experiences they have here at the university, the quality of instruction, the guidance that is offered, the experiences that they have. So your role is an important one. And so I want to say thank you for the time and the attention that you've given me here this evening. As I said, it's not going to be too long, and we will leave the floor open now for your questions. All right, so thank you very much for your time, and if there are any questions, we will take those at this point. My colleagues who are here are free to assist once we have those questions coming in. And usually for this session, we do tend to have quite a lot of questions.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Sandra. So you are free to ask questions, concerns that you may have. Especially on the topic at hand. Let me look at the chat.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
So my question is, as a parent of the new student entering, coming straight from CSEC into the diploma program, how do I go about helping him transition from secondary school to university? Because no, I would say he's 17, so he's pretty young. So yes. How do I go about assisting?
Right. So we actually have a handout we would give out, because this question comes up so often. Differences between university, secondary school and university. Whereas, for instance, in secondary school, time tends to be structured by others, right? At university, you have to structure your time. You have to manage your time. You have to try to attend at least 80% of classes, right? For this exam at the end of the term to make sense. Attendance is important. We have situations arising sometimes where people are spending the entire day off campus, so they drop them off on a and they spend the time elsewhere. Yeah. Come back in the afternoon for people to pick them up, right? Spend the whole day playing cards in the cafeteria, right? Spending too much time on the phone, looking at all kinds of things that they ought not to, right? So learning how to manage time. You see, if we old habits die hard. And some students, if they have inculcated those very bad habits, it can be a hard thing to break. So they sometimes need help in the process. I am really concerned about students and devices and the fact that they are very often their situational awareness is just not there. You're spending so much time doom scrolling and moving from TikTok to something else that you are not even aware of what's going on around you. And then when you have the AirPods in and all these other things blocking out things, you're not seeing a lot of what you need to see. In Sweden, for instance, they have opted to ban smartphones in schools. I don't know if you all are aware of that, because of concerns of this nature. So students managing their time, especially when they're young, and there is the temptation to get into so many other things, it could be a problem. So encouraging a structured approach, so you have some sense of what's happening at school. I am concerned sometimes when I go to do presentations for students going out into industry, and they're sitting down there and they're just sitting down and nobody has a notepad, nobody is writing anything. Nobody, I don't know if they expect to recall every single detail. Students are coming here without notebooks, not taking notes, expecting to record everything, and then I don't know if something happened to the phone, I guess, well, problem. So it's important to be organized. It is important to have your stationery. It's important to attend classes. To take what you're doing here seriously. Get familiar with the library, get familiar with the staff in the library. They can be extremely helpful in providing students with knowledgeable, reputable and as I said, the resources, databases, and so on. Students have to take note of questions or concerns they have during a lesson. When you miss a point or you don't understand something, make a note of it. Put an asterisk. When our instructors who are based at San Fernando, for instance, have at our campuses, have office hours. Those who are, some move around, yes, but many of them have office hours, and students are encouraged to find out when the instructors have office hours so that they could meet with them. But you don't go to an instructor during office hours and say, after you have done nothing, wasted time, and say, well, I don't understand anything. It's not likely to be received well. It's important for that instructor to see that you've made an effort to look at material and determine, okay, sir, I'm getting A, B, and C, but X, Y, and Z is a problem. So again, a lot of them feel, well, they are adults, but they're not fully there, as I said, at the start of the presentation. You have some developing still to do until the mid-20s before we can say that your brain is fully developed and you understand about executive functioning and decision making and problem solving. So assistance is required. Managing time well, so you can't party all the time. Good. You have to know who your students' friends are, right? That whole saying about friends will take you and not bring you back. Who are they hanging out with? Alcohol, marijuana, these are things that you need to be keeping an eye on. It's not the healing herb that some people think it is. And we have some concerns about, the buzz driving and so on that we might see we had. So yeah, just saying you are needing to keep an eye on things, but engage. Please do not get the impression that particularly for younger students, it's all about school and nothing else. I do have concerns about students who are overburdened at home. For instance, if they have siblings and they have to be taking care of their parents' children and so on, and they're not getting enough time for work. That's a whole other story. But they are expected to be responsible and manage in life because you're preparing them for adulthood, right? So you have to do your laundry, you have to wash your dishes, you have to keep your room clean, and so on. I hope I've been helpful. Hope that gives you some. I hope I've provided you with some pointers.
Right. Thank you, Sandra.
Mhm.
And I please note as the questions come in, I want to open it to even some of the other counselors that are on board with us if they want to add or take away anything, especially to that question.
I want to say this. It's important to
Add to that too,
yeah.
with Sandra was talking about, there's some realities I think a lot of parents is not prepared for when it comes to higher education. And Sandra touched on some of it, which is some of the societal ills from sex to drugs to the alcohol. As much as we have security, as much as we have all the policies in place, we really have no control over the individuals. We have things in place to deal with if they are caught, but at that point it's done. And we're not going to hide the fact that these are things that exist. They're going to come in, they are interacting on a different level. So if you're looking at a 17, which we have a lot of, the 17-year-olds that's coming in, these are some of the conversations I would encourage the parents to have with them. They might be tempted to try because, you know, we're starting to feel big. So they may be tempted to get involved, try. One of the issues I particularly dealt with a lot in the last semester was a lot of drunkenness on the campus for some reason. We don't even know how they're getting it in. These students are creative. And of course, they're young and it's probably your first time. So we have people throwing up and I mean, we deal with it, but it's kind of after the fact. So we do it. We want to encourage, especially parents with young ones, to talk to them about things like that. Yeah.
It's important to help them to understand that they have to make a very successful go of their courses, because if the grade point average, the university in terms of a university standard, typically 2.0 or higher, right?
2.0, yeah.
Grade point average. Now online, and this is particularly for the parents. On the university's website, you can find the student handbook. Yeah, you can actually go in the handbook and look up what the standard of conduct here, that what is expected here in terms of conduct, how we deal with misconduct. You can find out about how to calculate a grade point average. If students start to underperform, their status will drop to academic probation. If they do not improve, they can go into academic suspension, where they would be asked to, no new courses, you have to pass what you have failed before you could proceed. And if they still continue to do very little, they may be given the compulsory withdrawal letter where they are asked to leave. A few years ago, there were a number of people who were actually walking around with that compulsory withdrawal letter in their pocket. Now, if you are living in my home and I am paying for meals and your books, etc., at the end of the semester, I need to know how you're doing. I need to know. So while our contract here at the university is with the student, and the student will get the grade, and a parent is not going to be able to come in and ask for that, the student is expected to provide you with the grades. And bear in mind, if a student fails and they are given an opportunity to repeat, you have to pay for that. And the highest grade you will get is a C. Even if you excel the second time around, you will not get a grade higher than C. And each grade has a certain amount of quality points associated with it. And that is what will be tallied to calculate one's grade point average. So these are matters that parents can bear in mind. In the student handbook, it's a really good guide that you can have a look at to see what is expected of our students and the possible repercussions in the event that they do not do what they are supposed to be doing here.
Great. Okay, thank you. I have some questions in the chat. I think the first one I saw is they were asking about what about for well-being, balance? What falls under occupation or your job? I'm guessing they're talking about the work balance between. If I get that wrong, the person could clarify. I think that's Amari, but yeah, I think they mean work-life balance in respect to school. Anyone? Anyone the counselors could take it.
No, I'm not sure I'm hearing about occupation. Some students actually are part-time students. So they may be working and attending part-time. So I'm not sure if the question would pertain to whether the person is employed part-time. Sandra, maybe you could expound a little bit on your chart, the occupational piece you have there.
Yes, well, again, this would really be primarily for those people who are working, right? That work-life balance, as was mentioned, the ability to function on the job because you have employers' demands to meet. And then you also have to meet the demands of, the school environment, the university setting, all right? You have to study, you have to write papers, you have to submit assignments, and so on. You have to develop your intellect as well. So a lot of the time, we are not doing enough reading. We have to build a vocabulary. We have to use words, in the right context and so on. It's a bit appalling sometimes, the quality of writing. People even submit email messages. There is no header. There's no, you just brap, you go into a dry statement. I need to find out about this. Who, excuse me, good afternoon, dear sir, dear, nothing. So developing one's intellect, I cannot overemphasize the need to read, because sometimes people don't even read the signage on doors before they enter a space. They're not reading. You have to take charge of your mental health, as I said, manage your feelings well. Socially, those networks with friends, because you have to strike a bit of a balance. If you just operate all the time in isolation, you're going to run into problems here. Even introverts can learn to be more sociable. The fact of the matter is, we need each other. We have to learn to be independent, yes, but also interdependent.
Great, thank you, Sandra and Dr. Edison. I have another question from the chat, and anyone else who has a question, they can put their hands up. Somebody asked about what about physical health in all of this?
Yeah, well, that is crucial. In fact, we know from the research that exercise is very, very helpful in managing stress. Psychiatrists would usually tell their patients that once there's no impediment, there's nothing preventing them from exercising, that they should exercise. Because exercise, once you get past the phase where the lactic acid kicks in and you're feeling a lot of pain and feeling that every part hurts, once you keep at it and you get beyond that phase, you realize that it gets to the point where very good feel-good chemicals called endorphins are released. So it helps. A lot of people manage anger. And many of our student athletes tell us that had they not gotten into sports or into track and field or different activities, that they would probably have ended up in a very different place in life. So that balance is crucial. I hope that clears it up a bit. I'm not sure if there are any more questions on this
Yes.
particular.
So,
Yes.
okay. I don't know if any of, and please, any of the other counselors that are on, if you want to jump in, you can. There's another question. What advice can you give to students who are re-entering the education system after some time? Before you answer, I don't think I acknowledge all the SSS staff that is online. So we have Ms. Sandra Hernandez, Dr. Edison Greenaway, Dr. Astra Kasiram, Dr. Edison Greenaway. I think I did see Roger Warner as well. And all these are our student counselors that I would have just mentioned. And from SDU, we have myself, Ms. Petula Tavares, Ms. Colleen Sukram, and we have with us as well the Senior Manager of Student Support Services, Dr. Jason Stafford. And we have Risi O'Connor as well online with us. Hope I didn't miss anybody. But the floor is open if you all do want to give some insight on some of the questions. You all could join in. So just to read that question again, what advice can you give to students who are re-entering the education system after some time? And a couple people will point to that question, like, yes.
Well, I'm waiting to see if anybody else wants to take it.
Well, I could jump in a little bit here. So there's a big difference between change and transition. Change is the event. So let's say in secondary school and you started university, you registered and now you're a university student. A change has happened. Transition, however, is the internal processes we go through to be able to process and to manage that change. And having been away from school for a while, it would require some measure of transition, understanding the culture. Sandra mentioned quite a number of the structures that we need to put in place in terms of establishing study patterns, habits, building the right study skills that are necessary for success. Of course, it's a different level of study, so the strategies that might have worked well in secondary school or that you might have used in times past may not be effective in this type of environment. There's a much higher level demand. We need to become more independent learners. So whereas before there might have been some hand-holding, where teachers might have come alongside, remind you of deadlines. This is different where they require you to be an independent learner. So if there are challenges with the transition, our encouragement to you is to take some time to reach out to Student Counseling Services. We sit with you and we really help you to put these structures in place from very early. And we also serve as an accountability partner, where we would check in with you to make sure you're accountable. Are you keeping the strategies that we've discussed? We would check your progress. And students actually come and they would show us their grades and we will be walking alongside you and helping you to transition and to get to the place where you're able to function effectively. So my encouragement would be to reach out if you're having challenges with the transition process and allow us to help put some strategies in place. And again, we hold you accountable as well. So we check in with you to see your progress. If something we talked about isn't really working, we can change the strategy that may fit your context a little more clearly. So work with us. We are here to support and to walk you through this process to help you to get to that place of success.
Great, thank you, Dr. Edison. Anyone else have any advice about transitioning or changing your environment and now becoming a student after a long period of time. All right, I want to move on then. This name sounds familiar, but if a person has no support and is in need of someone to just talk to, will the conversation stay between the person and the counselor due to the fact that some people are not able to open up to other persons? And I will take your question next, Ms. Hackett.
Confidentiality is at the heart of what we do. If we have no confidentiality, we have no clients. There are instances when we have to breach confidentiality, and that has to do with threat to life. If, for instance, you are a threat to yourself or you are a threat to others, there are steps that we are required to take because we have a duty to warn. For instance, next of kin, that they need to keep an eye on you. You may need to be referred to a psychiatrist. If you are threatening someone else, we would have to take steps to warn that person to run. We wouldn't call the police, but we will warn the person to take steps to protect themselves. We are dealing here with preservation of life. However, outside of those matters, if we are, for instance, called to court, if we are, a subpoena is given, when you come into the counseling space, these are things you would be informed about. Outside of those that I mentioned, however, your business with us is private, it's confidential. Your record in student counseling does not form part of your academic record. No one has to know you're coming to meet with us unless you choose to tell them. If for whatever reason someone has to be informed about the session, a family member, an academic, an instructor, a program head, you have to actually give written permission for that to happen. And you have to guide us, not just in terms of what we say to that person, not just who to talk with, but what we are allowed to talk about. So you might come because you have family issues and there's a particular thing you want your instructor to know. On the form, you would be able to say who we are allowed to talk with and what we are allowed to talk about. It's called a consent to release information form. So that is how we work.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Keisha Hackett.
Yes, hi, good night. Good evening, everyone.
Good day.
I'd like to get some information as it pertains to the fees payment and the process because the acceptance letter didn't state anything. And I'm hearing that there's a $1,200 fee. I'm not sure if we have to pay that before or if we have to wait until the orientation next week, Friday. I'm not sure of that process, or if you could guide, please, on that aspect.
Okay, so well, Bailey, to answer the question, the $1,200 is the registration fee that you have to pay. But you have to liaise with some student accounting, but we want to keep the questions in this session very on topic to what we're discussing. I will try to answer. I saw some of you with unrelated questions in the chat that we have a couple persons here that will try to answer you directly. So don't think I'm ignoring some of the questions. We will answer you directly in the chat, as well as we continue with these sessions today and next week. We will have an opportunity to speak with these specific persons from these departments like student accounting and registry, where you could ask some of these specific questions if you have issues.
Avalon, excuse me, I just need to check something. I have to be excused for a short time. I'll be back.
Not a problem. We have other counselors here.
Thank you.
Yes. So like I said, as we go forward in some of the other sessions, you will have an opportunity to speak with some of the other departments that could assist you with your registration, choosing your courses, finance. So we'll take those questions, or if you put it here and we have the answer, we will respond. All right. The next question I saw, sorry about that. I think I lost where I was. Right, someone asked about dress code. Could there is any way to find out about student dress codes and what exactly is needed to be worn? If you, Sandra did mention the student handbook, and I did see someone in the chat state where you can find it, which is on the website. But the dress code, there's a few off the top of my head I can speak to, depending on the campus. Of course, depending on your program and your campus, that may change. So for instance, if you are a sports student or you have a sports student, you may have to dress accordingly depending on what physical activity you have that day. We try to encourage those students when it's time to enter the classroom. There are rules, so you're not supposed to wear anything revealing. No slippers is allowed on the campus. No short pants. Any one of the examples we could jump in on the top of my head. But we will be covering this topic in the orientation session on Monday morning. So this is one of the things that will be covered by SDU, is dress code among some of the other policies that the students are required to follow on campus. Yeah. No, this handbook would not be emailed to you as indicated. It is on the website. The question is, what would help students to stay focused in 2-hour-plus classes? Also, any advice for when one feels overwhelmed by the workload? I see Roger was coming on. Go ahead.
Roger?
I think you could. Go ahead, Dr. Allison. Oh.
All right, so everybody need to understand what their attention span is. Some classes are online, some classes are face-to-face. For some students, it's a little more difficult to keep focus on an online platform, whereas face-to-face, you have the interaction in the classroom that allows you to be more involved. So there has to be a level of self-awareness as to your own limits for attention, to keep attention. What's important? All right, we have someone joining us here. Right. What's important as well is breaking up your task into smaller pieces. We call it chunking. So that if the teacher is giving let's say giving assignments or teacher is talking about specific things, you probably want to be taking notes and making sure that you capture some of the main points the teacher is talking about. When it comes time to go through the notes and to go through the information, we talk about chunking, where you break up that into smaller tasks. So whether it's 15 minutes period at a time, 20-minute period at a time, where you can go through the information. Now, in terms of the specific question towards attention, something we do very effectively with students who may even have struggles with ADHD and keeping attention is something called self-regulation. So think about a secondary school or a primary school where if a student is off task, the teacher sometimes will call on that student, Jonathan, pay attention, stay on task. At this point, you're required to self-regulate. You're responsible for keeping on task. The lecturer may not necessarily call you out if you're off task and invite you to keep on task. So, I mean, we go through self-regulation strategies. Hold a sec. Pardon me. We go through self-regulation strategies within our sessions, but just to kind of capture some of the things that you can think about. Check in with yourself. Check in with yourself, let's say every 15, 20 minutes to see if maybe you're on task. Maybe you can have a friend, if you were able to build that kind of camaraderie in the classroom, who would help to keep you on task if you have difficulty staying on task. So let me see if I get the question right. Keeping on task for a 2-hour session, and there's another part of the question. Avalon.
Yeah, for if you start feeling overwhelmed.
Right. So I think Sandra talked about being balanced. So being overwhelmed would mean that you need to take some time to balance your space and your time, balance your life. So it's important that we take some time for periodic breaks. Even if you're in class all day, and those of you who might be online, you might want to take a little time away to take a little breather from the session. If you have classes going all day, make sure that you take some time to take your small breaks. Small breaks can go a very long way. I often think about it like a pressure cooker on a stove, or you're boiling some rice on a stove. And just that little space that the steam comes out is enough to avoid that pot from bubbling over. And so if you are going all day and you're not taking sufficient breaks periodically throughout your day, your school day, to just refresh yourself and to clear your head, you can find yourself feeling overwhelmed. So being balanced, having other fun, small activities you can do throughout your day, throughout your week that can help to clear your head is important. Because some people can be overly intense and just pushing, and you will eventually become overwhelmed. The task is already great. Sandra mentioned that different lecturers will have deadlines, and deadlines sometimes would clash. So it's important for you to have strong time management to make sure you pace yourself. It's important as well not to leave the assignments for last or for close to deadline. Give yourself an earlier deadline. Simple strategy. If the deadline is the 30th, chances are the other lecturers may give a deadline the 30th as well. Be able to give yourself an earlier deadline if you have to, and work towards that. So give yourself some space if you don't finish on time. But if you leave everything to the end to start your assignments, you're going to end up in problems. So my recommendation to avoid being overwhelmed is keep a close eye, even if you have to write out the deadlines, timelines, when things are due, and fix that in front of you on some sheet of paper where you can monitor on a regular basis. Start your assignments early. Do not wait. If you look at the rubric, you look at the course outline, they tell you when the assignments are due. So you know in advance that on the 25th, this particular assignment is due. And sometimes the lecturer will give you sufficient time because they understand the work that's required to do the assignment. So for example, those that require a level of research, it means you need some time to research the topic. If you start an assignment too late, you're going to end up in problems, particularly if it's clashing with other assignments from the other lecturers as well. So pace yourself. Take some time to do other activities that can help to relieve some stress. Stay balanced, avoid procrastination. And again, if you're having challenges with this, please come see us, because we will help you devise that structure. We help you to go through the courses that you're doing, look at your timetable, and we help to keep you accountable in managing those times. So again, Student Counseling Services, we are part of your support system. Please utilize our service, reach out to us, and we will help to put some structure in place for you if you're having difficulties.
Thank you, Dr. Annette Greenaway. Shantai, okay, the hand went down.
Hi, good day.
Yeah, okay.
Is this guidance only provided face to face, or can you also have through phone calls or email?
The sessions to book appointments, if you go to the main website, and I implore all of you to please get familiar with the website, parents and partners as well. There's access to information you can get. If you go into campus services, you will find out about things like the academic calendar. You will find out about student development. You will find the student handbook. All those things can be found. In order to be seen, you have to schedule an appointment. with the counselor at your campus. So you have to schedule, there's a booking system, you schedule your appointment, and you would be encouraged to go onto the site, find out about how counselors work, all that is there for you. And you can be seen in person or you can be seen online via Microsoft Teams. Okay? The phone is sometimes utilized, but it is not as effective because as face-to-face and even via video like online on Teams, because even on online, I may miss things. So you may be smiling on camera, but your foot shaking like mad under the table. I will miss things in terms of your body language, nuances, your drop in tone, etc. So yes, we do accommodate via telephone if no other option is available, but most of the time it would be face-to-face or via Microsoft Teams online. All right, but it's important for you to schedule your appointment because sometimes people may try to come in and then they can't be seen if the counselor is in session with another client. Okay.
Thank you. Let me just take this one. Beverly, I see your hand. Let me just take one from the chat.
Good night.
One sec. The question in the chat about if a student gets ill, what is the protocols? And I think you were specifically dealing to if the person is on dorms. If the person is sick like the flu or something like that, they can call their parent or who they need to come and get them. If it's something that they have declared, if it's an illness they had declared from before, we will call or make the necessary arrangement. If it's an emergency situation, and if this happens during the day, we do have trained persons on the campuses, from the nurse to the health and safety persons. If it's at night on the dorms, there are the hall monitors that can assist. The ambulance will be called or they'll be taken to the closest health facility, which will, depending on which dorm you're at, it could be the health center or the hospital. I hope that answers your question. Beverly, should I read your question in the chat or you want to ask
Thank
directly?
you. Yes, you can. So
Okay.
good night. Okay.
Good night. So the question here is and it's a really good question. I think, what are my boundaries and relationship as a parent pertaining to UTT, because her son is 17 years old? What are the boundaries?
Right. So we have this challenge with students who are underage being minors, yes, but they are expected to operate independently here. No, your student is not in secondary school, so as it relates to grades and so on, the university would still not be able to furnish you with that information. Your son or daughter would have to provide you with that. Parents have come in and can be accommodated if they have a particular concern. There have been instances when, they might make arrangements to meet with program leaders, discipline leaders, and so on, depending on the nature of the concern. However, as I said, I myself have two daughters, one who is finished now, graduating, and another one in final year, who I would have been supporting. And yeah, because you are the person supporting them, it's expected that they would communicate with you about what is taking place. So yes, you can ask questions, yes, but it's not like where you could go to secondary school and make arrangements to come see a teacher and that kind of thing. Doesn't work like that. All right. You could try to contact the office via email if there's a concern. But ultimately it really does depend to a large degree on the foundation you have laid and the quality of the relationship that you have with your son Hopefully it's an open one. It's one where, you know, there's communication. You want to communicate with your young people too about how they are doing, because a lot of the time people may be living in the same space and not know. It's showing the interest, yes, but also not helicopter parenting where you want to sort of do everything for them. And sometimes some people have difficulty with that. They don't know where to draw the line. They may be keen to try to get too overly involved in what's taking place at this level, and that can pose a challenge. That can pose a challenge. We've had instances where people want to feel they can come on the compound and, you know, walk around and check this and check that. No, it doesn't work like that at this stage. I don't know if that helps. Is this Miss Beverly? Miss Beverly, I don't know if that helps, if you wanted some further
Yeah.
clarification.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
You are
Because
most-
I'm holding
Yes.
the same thing that entering UTT, he's on his own in terms of he has to be responsible, gather all information to bring to me so that I am able to assist him. But in terms of into UTT, he's all on his own.
He's on his own. And as I said, a good place to get information, the UTT staff directory is actually available. To get to persons extensions, you could actually go online and find the department that your son is in, and maybe try to get the extension of staff members at the office you could maybe liaise with. The student handbook is also a really helpful guide to parents with respect to you having some idea of, you know, what is expected here. We are seeing a lot of these socks and slippers, you know, which seems to be in style. But socks and slippers on rainy days, I don't know. The white socks is black. We also have had challenges, you know, in the past, you know, communicating with young people about what is expected footwear in the labs. They have to have their safety boots and other, you know, protective gear on, you know. So it's important to, as I said, do your part, be as informed as you can be as a parent. Familiarize yourself with what is expected, so you could give him back a response if he trying a fast one, you know, kind of say, okay, well, yeah, this is the end of the term. You're supposed to be having quizzes during the term. It's not just a final, right? How are you doing on your quizzes? Because your quizzes usually are a good indication of, you know, what you need to give emphasis to, pay more attention to, and so on. So you have to keep track, not just at the end of the term, but during the term too, to see how he's doing. Yeah?
Yeah. Great. Anybody else want to join in on that or give any?
I probably want to again encourage to partner with your son, partner with your child. Over involvement can be problematic, and no involvement is also problematic. But they may be needing you to help to provide that balance. Show interest, make sure you're on top of what they need to do and when, and help them in terms of keeping their deadlines. Let them share with you the strategies that they've put in place, the timelines that they have in terms of exams, and so you can help to keep them accountable. Help them in terms of managing times of study, because they may set a timetable, but they themselves might struggle to keep the timetable. And I've found that having an accountability person helps in terms of, you know, keeping these deadlines and these strategies that you've put in place. But again, avoid being overly demanding, and as Sandra mentioned, being a helicopter parent. But you want to be able to establish a partnership with them where they're able to allow you in to work as a partner in helping them to achieve these goals that they have set. I feel if you could accomplish that, you would have done well in terms of working together with your son.
I think creating a space for study too. So I will share, the desk. Where do they sit to do work? Are you in a fixed spot? Is the lighting in place? Or, do you find that, at a particular site, for instance, you will have your books, your timetable, everything in one space, maybe on the wall. You have your books and everything ready, so you don't have to be running around every minute to try to get what you need to get. The foundation in terms of learner needs that the family usually provides would include, the basics like the food, a sense of safety, but also a lot of love and encouragement. And I believe in you, son. I know you can do it. I know it's hard. You don't necessarily have to have the technical know-how, because many of our students, the vast majority of them, are actually first generation tertiary level students. So very often they live with people who may not be totally aware of or acquainted with what they are dealing with at this level. But students will tell you over and over it, my mother falling asleep on herself, but she there with me. She know I had to finish this. And she nodding off on me, but she there with me. She there with me. And that means a lot. That means a lot to them. So the parent is providing that foundation, and together with the student becoming an active agent in his or her learning, it creates that learning readiness. It creates that readiness that is crucial. Knowing that you have that encouragement at home. Knowing, for instance, that you have a good solid meal, that you eat properly, that you're not these energy drinks, boy, that you're not living on some of these things, the Monster and some of the other things that, so balanced in terms of your eating and, and so on. So it's a lot of encouragement too. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Giovanni, I see your hand. Let me just quickly respond to one of the questions here in the chat. Yes, Risa, you can transition from full-time to part-time if it's necessary for you. Giovanni, go ahead.
So this is Giovanni's mom.
Great. Giovanni, mommy, you can go ahead.
Giovanni's also 17. And as Dr. Greenaway was saying, I would have to learn not a helicopter because I am that parent. And for me, I will have to now transition. He's in university, so I have to find a balance at some point in time. Sooner than later though, because he's starting.
Sooner.
So
we get that.
I can say that he has support.
Great.
He has support in the home. He's one to not procrastinate when it comes to his schoolwork. He will now have to learn to do research in terms of going to the library and stuff like that. So it's a big transition for him as well, for the family as well.
I like the fact that you mentioned the family, because rarely when one person is in university, basically the family is in university.
It is, yeah, because we were there with him from the application process, and he's here right now listening, so
Very
he's
good.
hearing everything.
Good. Well, I can tell the support that he has, and I feel very confident that he's gonna do well.
From your lips to God's lips.
To God is right.
Avalon, let me just jump in a minute, please.
Sure.
I've been in and out of the meeting. I've been hearing Sandra and Edison talking about all the good qualities that the parents could support with. However, the reality is that some families or some households are in turmoil. Mommy and daddy may be going through a divorce. How does that affect this young man going to school? And that's why the counseling aspect is really important. Every situation would be different. You are probably hearing all the good things and all the ways to handle stuff, but sometimes there are issues that you can't handle. What do you do? You may go to a friend who may give you all the bad advice, and things get even worse. So I'm just encouraging you all to utilize the services that we have. And as Sandra mentioned earlier on, everything is confidential. That's important. That is the basis of what we do and how we do our job. So again, I'm just encouraging you all to enjoy your time at the university. You can learn outside the classroom as well. Network, meet friends, party if you can. But remember why you're here. You're here to go through the process, to graduate and do well in life afterward. All right, that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. And just to add on what Roger said, we really want to encourage the parents. I think part of the boundaries and the balance is also knowing there are some things they're not going to talk to us about. So I want to encourage some of the significant others here to encourage their student. Because sometimes you will pick up something not to write. You may ask them a couple times and don't get an answer. Now that you're aware, you can also encourage them to book an appointment with the counselor. If you see them looking a little wary, encourage them. They may not want to talk to you, and that they're at that age, most of them. So you want to encourage them to take part in the services that are available to them. And that's part of the encouragement too. That's part of the support. Just encouraging them to take advantage of what's available to them.
And
Yeah.
I would just like to pop in here. Good evening, everyone. I just also would like to encourage parents to celebrate progress, not just perfection. So acknowledge your child's effort, not just, overcome. So, you could say things, I'm proud of how hard you've worked, you handle the situation very maturely, so celebrate small wins. And, be patient during the growth process. You have to remember that university is full of changes, both academically, socially, emotionally. As Miss Beverly said, her son is quite young. So he's also not just experiencing academic change, but, his personality, his finding himself in all of this great world, this journey. So we have to remember that, just celebrate the small success, be patient during the growth, and try to be as transparent as possible with your child with regards to budgeting, living expenses, tuition, all of these things. Make them part of the process. As you said that you were there from the application process up until now. So continue to make them part of the process, even though he may be young. He will have something to contribute into his future and how he goes in life. So parents, just remember to celebrate all the successes and just be there everywhere and every part of the journey of this life, this new life that they're embarking on.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Cassie Brown. Let me just quickly answer some of the more basic questions that I could answer from the chat. Online, so you're also doing part-time, whether or not your classes will be online or a mixture, that depends on your program. When you do have or meet with your program persons, they will give you your timetable. Some of them will probably email it to you within the next week or two. You'll be able to see how your program is running if you're part-time, if it's all online or you have a blended program. Yes, we have cafeterias on most of our campuses. It will be easier for me to see the campuses that don't have a cafeteria. That would be Tamina and Upper. Yeah. The others, there is availability of some sort of cafeteria service. Do kids stay overnight? Usually we don't really have an overnight stay on campus. We allow that to happen during the exam time. So within the week or two before exams, into the exam time, most campus have a schedule where we will allow students to stay overnight, but I think you have up until 12 to leave the campus. And then they have strategic times that the gate will open and close. So if you're there by 12, you're in there till the gate open, probably like 3 or 4. And then you could exit and come in at that's how it goes. It's staggered. Now, this may vary campus to campus, but we usually allow that overnight study group thing like during exam times. Right, so that's that I can answer. Good afternoon. I was spoken to that, okay, the students need to develop habits and strategies when it comes to our success in exams. Can you share with me what are some of the studying and memorizing tools that they can use during exam period?
Okay,
Now,
so
that may be a big
I-
one.
yeah, that's a
Like a big
whole
one.
presentation by itself.
Yes.
Yes, and it's an important question because we don't typically learn how to study. We sort of wing it and kind of have to figure it out along the way. We tend to have different learning styles. Sometimes some of us might learn more from what we see, the visual. We might be more auditory, we might be kinesthetic, we might be more hands-on. Like these are the students who come alive on field trips and workshops where they get that hands-on experience. But knowing your learning style, knowing, for instance, what time of day works for you, the memorization tools I mentioned earlier, there are mnemonic devices that you can look up. MNEMONIC. The first M is silent. These are the preferable tricks and strategies one can use to help one retain information. It includes things like, how we remember the how many days in each month of the year? There was a rhyme we used to say long ago. 30 days had September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31, excepting February alone, which has but 28 days clear and 29 in each leap year. It's a rhyme. We have acronyms. We have acrostics. My very elegant mother just served us 9 pizzas. That's an acrostic. These are the planets, right? So Mars, very, Venus, elegant, Earth, mother, Mercury, just, Jupiter, served, Saturn, us, Uranus, 9, Neptune, pizzas, Pluto, which they now say is not a planet anymore. But, we have, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, the order of mathematical operations, please, parentheses, excuse, exponents, my, multiplication, dear, division, and addition, Sally, subtraction, the order of mathematical operations. So we have rhyming, we have chunking, the reason that, for instance, we remember a phone number by the first 3 digits and then the 4, it's easier to chunk it, break it up into small parts. It's easier to remember 3 and then 4 versus trying to remember 7 digits. You have acronyms, acrostics. I still remember the planets from Roy G. Biv acronym. The colors of the colors of the rainbow, sorry. Right? Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So there are, if you go online and you look up MNEMONIC, you can actually see mnemonic devices for different subjects, including things like engineering, science, and physics, and tools you can use, right? If you are in MIT, there are tutorials you could find online apart from YouTube. There's Khan Academy for people who, for instance, need assistance with some of those areas. For instance, if science is not your forte, physics and so on, you could go and do tutorials online. MIT also has a package of open courseware, free tutorials offered in different subjects. So there are options that you can look up to try to get, for instance, if the approach taken by the instructor is not, you're not on board with it, you have to try to still get through with this program. So you might want to maybe see if you could sign up for some peer tutoring with one of our peer tutors who could sit with you and help you through the math. Engineering math is pretty challenging because it's more analysis and application, less rote learning. So for people who went to run through past papers and stuff, you're gonna have problems here. You have to learn to analyze and apply and so forth. So it's a number of strategies. These are things too that counselors can help you with. Because a lot of people come and say, oh, we thought we had to be kind of talked, things had to be real bad to go and see the counselor. You had to be like, you feel like when you reach the counselor is only there to talk you off a ledge. We would much prefer to see people before they consider going on any ledge. Speaking of which, yesterday actually was the suicide prevention. It was recognized globally. I don't know if you all are aware of that. And, people have to kind of be aware of how they're doing, how they're feeling. Males in particular are at risk because they are less inclined to open up, So there's help you can get before it gets to that point. We would prefer to see you. We want to see, okay, Miss, that schedule we worked on really helped. A schedule that could kind of take into consideration what your day looks like if you have extracurricular, if you could work through lunchtime, if the nighttime doesn't work out, maybe you're a morning person. These are things counselors help with. We are not just here for the really serious stuff. We are here to help you achieve your goals. That's why we're here. Yes?
Yes.
So hopefully more on that. You come in here, we could talk about those memorization techniques. We could work out schedules. We could help you work on your study skills, We could tell you about the Pomodoro. You could look up Pomodoro online all now, which is like a timer. You have your typical attention span is about 15 minutes. Look up Pomodoro. It's Italian for tomato. There's a technique around that you could look up. So there are lots of things you can use to help you improve. Yeah.
Thank you.
Avalon, I'd
thank
just
you,
like
Sandra.
to
Oh, sure. Go
a
ahead.
little bit, just for short. Sandra said, it's excellent what you do, and come to the counseling session. But I just wanted to interject and say self-care is also very important if you want to be able to memorize and retain information. Too often we see students, some of them, all they're running on is Red Bull. A few hours sleep, maybe an hour or two, a kiss muffin, and that is not enough. Because if you're having struggles memorizing, going into the exam and doing well and concentrating, we can give you, at least I think we can give you as much techniques as you would like. However, if you don't have that self-care, if you're not getting the proper sleep, and proper sleep is not just 7 to 8 hours sleep, it is restful sleep. Memory tension is stronger when you're well rested. Also, hydration and eating well. Brain-friendly foods, we all love the KFC, the McDonald's, all of these things. I'm not saying don't eat it, but if you're eating this 7 out of the 7 days for the week, you're going to have a little problem. So, you have to increase your fruits, your vegetables, see how much water you're drinking. As I said, the Red Bull and stuff, it's not considered water. And then also exercise, because we could get into the stagnation, of just going to class, going to work, being at home. So, even light movement like walking, stretching, that reduces stress, and it also improves concentration. So, in addition to all those techniques, I'd like to highlight a little self-care in those areas, because sometimes we tend to neglect that. Even as adults going through life's routines, work, we're not even in school, we're just working sometimes. And even for me, the sitting job that we have, I have to remind myself, get up, take a walk, stretch, just stand while you're on the computer, stand. I found myself You know, every 15 minutes, if I don't have a client, I'm going to stand for 15 minutes. So no, those are the kinds of things. So I urge you all to think about that. If you're having problems with memorizing, you know, before and think, look at your lifestyle and see what is happening also, and see if you can find ways and techniques of improving that. And as Ms. Hernandez said, we as counselors are here to also help you with that, your self-care, because it's easier said than done. So come and see us, and while we are helping you with study tools, we can also help you with self-care tools also. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Kasiram. So you're the students that are on those go see the counselor. If you're not sure what type of learner you are, you need that help. I would say for myself, when I discovered the type of learner I was, that was a game changer for me as a student. It definitely worked. I'm very, what's that? Or you listen. Once I hear something, I remember. So once you know that, you're good to go. So I
Yes,
encourage,
because
and for the parents.
if you're an auditory learner, if you learn primarily through how you hear, and you have for instance, an instructor who has a really monotonous tone where there's little or no intonation, that person is just rambling on for you. You basically gone somewhere else, you know. So knowing the kind of learner you are is important. And for me, it's like Avalon said, I discovered these things later on in life, and I asked myself, well, where was all this information before? Where was all this information before? Why didn't I have this information at my disposal before? And speaking of which, as I say that, please, please, please do research on the programs that you have opted to do, right? So there is an excellent website called ONET Online. It's free of charge. You can go look up different careers. And what is helpful about it is you could actually find out about, you know, what, if you get into this field, what you would have to be doing, some of the skills that are needed in the field. So if you don't like people, there might be some fields you should. And I remember the student telling me she was referred because the instructors were pretty concerned that she kept to herself. She just didn't like talking to anybody. And you proposed to go the area she was preparing for. I was like, so how are you going to succeed in that area if you're not talking with people? So it's important for you to do the research, not just talk to people in the field, not just attend job fairs and, you know, but do your own research about what skills are required. ONET Online. All right. It also tells you about jobs that are expected to grow rapidly in the next several years, green economy jobs and other things. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Sandra. So you all encourage your students to go see the counselor, find out about these great study tips and how to study and the type of learners they are. Quickly to the questions. On Monday the 22nd, when school opens, whether or not your student has to come in physically or virtually, it depends on the program once again. And I will be sending out the academic 101 sessions when you will be able to meet with your program persons. And on that day, you will have an idea of your schedule and what is expected of you on the 22nd. The question about if you are stationed in Tobago, I'm not sure if you mean you're in Tobago and you have Trinidad classes or Tobago classes. If it's about classes in Tobago, the same thing I just said stands. You will be advised, Karin or Dr. Stafford is on. Could you all just remind me again when is Tobago's orientation? Any one of you? Another one?
Hi, everyone. Good night. Tobago's orientation is on Thursday, the 25th of September. That's the day after the holiday.
Okay, great. Thank you, Colleen. Okay, so when it comes to the orientation course, I am aware that some of you were having issues logging on. I'm trying to address that with the TLIS. Some of the issues were, as they explained, maybe you on the student side. So they have a session in your list of orientation sessions. That particular canvas will be covered on Tuesday afternoon, that evening session. So please make yourself available for those of you who are having issues with Canvas. We could rectify it on that day. Student shuttle service. At the moment, no, we do not have shuttle service for any of our campuses, but we are working on that, and hopefully it's something that we can get on board soon. Students that are traveling. If students are late to class, if it's physical class, it will be noted. Yeah. Yes, we are streaming live on YouTube page, so that on UTT's YouTube page. So if you would like to go back and see the session, if it is something you missed, if you came in late, you can go to the UTT YouTube page and access the full session. Yeah. Crocs. Somebody's asking me here. Okay. Is Crocs classified as a slipper? There's so many versions of Crocs out there. I think we will know the shape and the design that is qualified as the slipper and the ones that are not. Well, there's a lot of versions of Crocs out there. Christine Haynes, can you you can email, in respect to accommodations, you can email myself or Ms. Sukram, and we will place our email addresses or Mr. Alvarez in, I'm not sure which campus, but you can email us. Sorry, I saw Reese already responded, and we will respond to that. Great. Any other questions? Anybody have anything, they can raise their hands as well. Somebody's asking about amenities. Some of our campuses does have gyms. I believe ECIAF is functioning gym. Pointers has a functioning gym at this point. I think Chaguaramas has a functioning gym. Like I said, there's cafeteria services. And anybody in SSS could chime in. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything, but the amenities vary from campus to campus. As in the sense of what is required for your classes, again, you will be clear on that when you have your academic 101 sessions.
Someone had their hand raised.
All right, great. I saw a hand raised. Sorry. You can ask the question. Okay. So for those of you asking about amenities, there are things that are available, like the gym, to help with your balance. So you can go to the gym, play a little small goal on the field. You know, when you go to that class and it stresses you out, there are things that you can get involved with. There will be student programs available, extracurricular available that you can get involved with to help with that balanced life that the counselor spoke about. Patrice, you can ask your question.
Hi, good night. I'm Patrice mommy.
Great.
I would
Hi,
like to
Patrice
find
Mommy.
out, I would like to know if it have any shuttles from Tamana to Arima or from Arima to Tamana.
Okay, right. So like I indicated before, we don't have shuttles at the moment at any one of our campuses, but it's something that we are currently working on. And like I said, I'm hoping that we could rectify that situation soon. Soon.
So if you have to travel from, let me say, Arima to Tamana, where do you get the transport to come there?
I need some of my North persons to help me here. Who we have from on this side that could assist? Colleen? My apologies, I am from South origin, and I haven't had to travel to Tamana.
Hi,
Okay, well, guys, no,
So Colleen could answer the
yes,
question.
partially. But when I do travel, the landmark is the Arima Fire Station. So around that area there's usually the taxis on that street there to take you into Terminal. Yes. But to get out of Terminal may be a challenge. So what persons usually do, you would probably have to communicate, I guess, liaise with or familiarize yourself with the taxis that you are coming in with, or probably students group together and they make arrangements for the taxis that they come in with to take them back out. So that's usually the arrangement at Tamina campus with reference to transport if you are traveling.
okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Hi.
That's what I have. Every night I time up. Make sure
Okay, someone else was asking a question.
Hi, I'm Russell Henry's mommy. The travel session from because he will be coming in from Arima to the Point Lisas and Camden. Do you know how they traveling, or do they have a bus to pick up students?
Again, we don't have any transportation, but coming from that side, you go to Chaguanas, and I believe Colleen, you have to come in here again because that's your area. I know you come down to Chaguanas, and oh, your hands are going up. And I think from there you go into Couva, and from Couva you get a transport to go across to Camden. So it's a bit of a couple transports you may have to take.
So you're coming from Arima. So from Arima, you would have to take the Red Band Maxi and get to Curragh. Well, at least that's my route. That's the route I take. So you take the Red Band Maxi from Arima and you get to Curragh. And then you take the Curragh taxi and you would head into Chaguanas. So it's a long commute. And when you get into Chaguanas, the landmark there in Chaguanas would be Busy Corner. There are taxis there in Chaguanas that take you to the Point Lisas campus. So that's the route coming from Arima, yes.
All right, great, thank you. So Patrice, your hand just still up. The other person I'm seeing, do I have a name? It just says Samsung SM. Go ahead.
Hi, good night. Okay, so my daughter is coming from Point Fortin and she's going to Tamina. Could you at least assist us on how we're traveling to go up there?
Well, I think Colleen would have said from, I guess, the CREP where you go. So from Point, you'll go to San Fernando, then CREP, and then what she explained, where you take the Maxi to the fire station, right?
I was going to do some sprints over.
So from the fire station, then you
yeah, you would get the taxis by the fire station. They're around that area to take
in
you
Arima.
to yeah, in Arima to take you.
Like long time.
Thank you.
Great. Simone? No, sorry, Jared. Jared, you go first. Okay, so Simone.
Yeah,
So,
pleasant good night to everyone.
good night.
I have been trying, or my daughter rather has been trying to get an email to confirm the quote of the semester fees because someone is want to put it into the account, the UTT account. But up to this point, we have not gotten the email to confirm the amount. I think it's in excess of 18,000. But who is this email?
So
Whose
again, it
email
will
we
go
need
to
to?
those questions are for
Mhm.
the student accountant, so that'll be STU accountant at utt.edu.tt. But again, those specific questions that are not necessarily related to the sessions, we do have sessions with all these departments coming up next week where you could directly have an interaction with them. So the student accountant session will be on Wednesday morning, where they could directly answer you accurately what you need to be doing or what is the whole of.
Is that Wednesday the 17th?
Yes, I believe so. Wednesday the 17th. Yes, so
Oh,
that'll be
okay.
from 9 to 12.
9 to 12. On
Yes.
this same link?
No, the
No.
student would have been given an email, or they can go
Anna.
to the orientation website where we have all the links for each
Okay.
session. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I could probably ask Rissy to Rissy or Sandra or Colleen to put the orientation page website link in the chat for those of you who are unsure of what the schedule is, so you can see the sessions and what each one is about and who will be there, so you can make sure you're available for it. And it's online. Great. Zuriel, I hope I pronounced that correct. Okay, Zuriel,
Yes.
hand went down.
Yes,
Okay.
hi. No, it was just pertaining to the this is Zuria's mom, obviously. It was pertaining to the Camden campus travel situation. So I would have traveled
Okay.
with Zuriel for him to learn the route. And so I know now there's no shuttles. What the taxis told us is that, well, that same busy corner that Miss can't remember her name. Yeah,
Yes.
she would have mentioned. Right, so you walk straight up busy corner. And what he's saying is that, well, because they're gonna have on a shirt, they have the uniform.
Yes.
And
There's
once
a
the
uniform.
right, once the taxi spots the shirt, they know automatically where they're going. So it's not
Yes.
their challenge once you reach there. The issue is coming back, and I would have communicated with two drivers. I would have gotten their contacts because they said that usually, as you said, a phone call and a pooling together and grouping together to get back out. So that was just for the parent to get a little bit of assurance. So Zuriel
Great.
is my son name, so you can ask your son to link with him and he has the contact, so they could group up to do that. Because I know it's a kind of weird place to come out of.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that. But
also-
you do find a lot of the students carpool a lot and they,
Yes.
yes,
Well, that's reassuring as well.
yes.
Thank you.
I think, so that Nisha, is it now? Or you went already?
Hi, good
Nisha.
night.
Okay, good night.
Tamana campus has any in-person orientation?
At this point, you will have your program orientation, not your campus orientation. And your program orientation, as I indicated before, we will send the schedule as well as we will post it on the website. We will send it before the end of the week, and hopefully it will be posted on the website by tomorrow as well.
Okay,
But
thank
you will
you.
get the schedule for the academic orientation, which is program oriented, not campus. Ose.
Hi, good evening. My question would be is relating to the lecturer. For my timetable, I see that it has the same lecturer for multiple of the courses. My question is, if the lecturer was to somehow get sick or ill or is unavailable, who would replace him?
That will be an academic question, so we won't be able to answer that here. So when you have
Okay,
your
thank
academic
you.
session, they will be. So again, let me encourage you. This session was specifically for certain things, as we indicated with the parent. We can answer some of the others, but again, we have sessions coming up within the next week or two, you have the rest of your orientation session as well as your academic questions where you can directly ask these questions and get accurate answers. Yeah. All I'm seeing is iPhone.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
I just wanna clear something up. I'm from Arima, and the taxi stand to get the cars to go Tamana, it's not by the fire station. It is on the same street with the police station, and it's right opposite where you get cars to go Port of Spain.
Good. So we taking note of that.
Right. So
Thank
if
you
you're
very
in
much. I
front of
didn't
the
get your name,
police
but
station,
thanks.
Amanda, if you're in front of the police station, you're heading west and you cannot miss the taxi stand. Although this is Komoto's taxi stand, so before you get in the car, you have to tell them where you're going and see if they will take you there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Amanda.
Amanda, thank you very much for that. But when I travel, but it's been a bit since I've been to Tamano, I would have usually gotten the taxi around there. So that is why I informed.
Great.
Yeah.
So
So I guess,
everyone here
yeah,
have
there
two
may have been
options.
change. Yes, there may have been some changes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Great.
you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello, good night. Yes. Hashima.
Great.
Hashima.
Yes, Hashima.
Okay. We weren't able to attend the in-person orientation on Point Lisas yesterday. So we'd like to find out what we missed or if we would be informed of what we missed then. And if there's another orientation that we'll be able to
Well, unfortunately, there wouldn't be another orientation fair. And unfortunately, I think you missed some good stuff. I think for those of who were there, I think we had a good time. The students, we had some good reviews, but it was an interactive booth fair. You would have had the opportunity to meet some of the program persons there as well, and some of the internal departments, which you're going to meet us online as well, from student accountant to the library, all of us in SSS. We had the guilds, the student guilds, clubs that the students would have had an opportunity to interact and see if they want to be a part of these clubs, student clubs. And we had a lot of external companies there giving giveaways and some of the banks, what are your options for student loans and those kinds of things. The next time that opportunity comes around is next year.
Wow. Okay.
Unfortunately. But as I said, the sessions to come up will be just as informative and just as useful.
Okay. So when they have to go into campus other than yesterday?
Well, like I said, most of the programs from this point will send out their info, and I will send by latest tomorrow. They will have an idea of when their academic one-on-one sessions is with their program persons. That varies program to program. Some are in person and some are online.
Right. Okay. And the ones that are person to person, what is the latest time that those classes would be? Like, I know they have night classes.
It varies. I will be able to say that depending on the program.
Okay. And do we have to pay for the entire course one time, or do we have to pay by the year, like yearly?
You have to complete, you have to pay the semester, the term, sorry, or the semester, whichever one you call, by the end of the term. Otherwise, you will not get to register for the following.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Another thing. In cases of my daughter would be traveling. We coming from South. We're going to Point Lisas campus. Days when there's tremendous rain and there is flood. and she cannot reach up to the campus, what will be her situation? Would she be able to be getting the notes she missed? Or
Again, that would be an academic question. So
okay.
we will have every
Today,
academic program would
today's,
be able.
for those of you who might have joined in late, today's session, and I've gone back to the first screen just to remind people, is to
Yes.
assist the family and spouses, partners, persons who are supporting students in our environment. This is a presentation of the student counselors. We are part of the Student Support Services Department, and our session today is really on how family members can be a good support to students. All right, they each UTT has a website. You can go on that website now, and you are going to see that emphasis has been given to orientation, new student orientation, and you actually have schedules and wonderful information with respect to what is being asked right now, about what each program has, different sessions, meet and greet sessions, etc. So after this week, different and even during this week, some programs have started to have their own meet and greet sessions. The academics have their sessions with the students and so on. And these are some of the questions that will be tackled in those sessions. Today's session was about effectively supporting students. Okay?
Thank you very much, Sandra. So I think I addressed most of the questions in the chat, and the ones that I didn't get addressed, some of my colleagues has been responding in the chat. So thank you for that. As I indicated to everyone, we have sessions, and Sandra just reiterated that all along, to the parents that are here and the supporting other significant others. If you have any more questions or concern going forward for your students, I don't know if we have like spouses or anyone in here. We didn't really hear from significant others. But if you're quietly sitting by, again, it's a change, as the counselors indicated. Wife or husband is going to be a change. Girlfriend, boyfriend, however it goes, there's going to be a change in the dynamics. So I hope this session was helpful to you all as well. Yeah, I'm just checking to make sure I didn't miss anybody's question, topic related. I've kind of lost track of the chat. Okay. I don't think I missed anything. So if there's no other questions, going once, going twice, I want to thank the counselors. Sandra, I want to thank you once again. It's always a pleasure.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yes, it's also a pleasure. And I think we had a great in-house. We were filled. It was filled today. So thank you for the counselors. Again, I want to encourage the parents as the significant others, the support system, the student to take advantage of the counseling services. There are many institutions that they could have gone. It's not available. And it's going to be a transition for everyone, not just the student, the entire household. And we will try our best to support the best we can, because that's what we're here for. We are student support services. But we can only support when you all utilize the service. So I encourage you all to come. The counseling services are there, student support services. We have a disability unit. We have financial aid, and then we have student development. So take advantage of these things. I look forward to seeing all of you, all of those students on Monday morning. do expect some emails coming in. All right. And if you all have no other questions, I want to say good night to everyone. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for taking a vested interest in your and your students' future. Yeah. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, yeah.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Shalom, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.